All right.
I noticed this only got 12 videos in our videos thing.
Well, there's different sections. There's like...
It doesn't say we're live yet.
Well, we are. I just started it. It says 19 seconds we've been live.
There we go.
Yay!
Yay.
You get to join us. Hey, Ruth. How you doing? We're getting windy here today. It's just like clear and cold and windy, which was very disappointing because I've really been wanting to work in my garden. Molly Faye says hi. Hi, Molly. Or, yeah. How you doing? I don't think I've seen your name here before. That doesn't mean you haven't been around in the background. Jono says hi all. Hi. Ruth says okay. And you? I think I answered that. Rita says hello. How is everyone doing? And Ian says happy Sunday, blessed be. We're doing okay. We went over to my son's place last night, and they decided to have an outdoor fire, and, you know, in a contained space. And it was very cold. We were miserable because it was outside, and at least it wasn't as windy as it is today, but still. Heather's mother's the one who passed a few months back, and yesterday was her mother's birthday. So I went and bought her a hydrangea to plant for her mom, because that seems to help. I know that when my sister planted a cherry tree for her grandson that was lost at his birth, Benjamin, and it seems like a positive thing to do since she wasn't ready to spread her mom's ashes. So that's what we were up last night. And we left relatively early because we were freezing to death. Our hands were ice cubes. Like, we weren't prepared for this. Oh well. But it was fun anyway. It was interesting. Charlotte says hi everyone. Hi Charlotte. Anita says hi folks. Everyone doing well, I hope. So do I. I hope everyone is doing well. We certainly enjoyed last week's episode. It was fun and it really just went along quite nicely. Mary says hi, happy Sunday. Hi Mary. And so we have a new video coming out in a couple of days that Ian did, and you'll get to see the fire in the video. So for those who want to see the pillars on fire, you need to watch the video that will be coming out that Ian did.
Just for a short
period of time. Yeah. The Grumpy Owl says hello, and Jennifer S. says hello. Hi! Weather is a funny thing. So I've been growing my seeds that I got for the sweetgrass and for the sage, and it turns out that the seeds they sent me for the sweetgrass are not. I don't know what they are, but they are not sweetgrass. They're growing, but not into what I thought I was planting. So I guess I'll have to figure out if I want to keep it, whatever it is. Mary says, I have a hydrangea planted as well for memorial. And Jono says, fire! Rita says, yes, last week's live was awesome. Really flowed smoothly. Yes, it did. And Rita said, very helpful to plant something in memoriam. I bought one for us as well. When we first moved into our house, we had a hydrangea that was a lace hydrangea. And so it doesn't have the ball of flowers. It's got like a flat flower head with just some of the flowers in the middle and then some colored edges. And it just never really sang to me, so I bought a ball one to replace it. I want to have if I'm going to have a hydrangea, I want to have all the fun flowerets everywhere.
Yeah, and the one that was here was just kind of almost like a gray color. It was kind of an indeterminate color. It wasn't really...
Well, it was supposed to be blue, and if I'd known more, I could have made it more blue with the right kind of, fertilizer. But I did. I bought the fertilizer to keep the plant blue when I bought the 2 hydrangeas and gave some of that to Heather. so that she would have the fertilizer to keep the blue tones. They're an interesting plant because their color so depends entirely on their environment. Sort of reminds you of some people. Some people do well in some environments and not in others.
True.
DK says, hello, I've been here since finding your scrying video, and I've been watching ever since. Greetings from New Orleans. Well, welcome to the live show, and nice to have you around. Aaron says hello. Hi, Aaron. Yeah, so it's always been interesting. So because of last week, I brought in my piece of selenite in case Sundrop shows up. And this is the one I used in my massage practice.
That's a nice big piece.
Yeah, it's all smooth and stuff, so you can really use it as a massage tool. So you can, like, rub yourself with it, which is nice. This is one I often sleep with if it doesn't get out from under my pillow and under my back. Which is not very comfortable, just laying on a rock, but hey, that's the way that goes. But I really like them. Because I like the lines of light and how you can shine a flashlight in one end and the light will come out the other and shine on the wall. So it'll actually is like a fiber optic substance. It's interesting. So Joy says, hello, I probably won't get flowers on my hydrangea due to a couple of late frosts. Well, you never know because they grow pretty fast. Mary says, that's fun. I wonder what your seeds will be. Maybe the universe wants you to have that plant medicine. I don't know. Or maybe I got ripped off by the company because they're selling their sweetgrass seeds for a fairly hefty price. They're getting bigger, so I think I can take a picture of them and do a reverse image search and find out what kind of a plant it is. I also have an app, a plant identifier app on my phone, which at this point might work to tell me. So I know what it is I'm growing and decide if I'm going to keep on keeping on. And Mary says, New Orleans is here. Welcome. Yes, welcome to New Orleans, DK. Rita S. says, did not know about the light on the selenite. Yeah, that's one of the reasons why. And selenite is unique in the crystal universe. It never needs to be cleansed. And it can cleanse and charge other crystals. So I keep a fair amount of selenite on my altar with my crystals so that, it kind of naturally keeps them charged up for whatever purpose I've charged them up for, and cleanses anything that might have, gotten attached or whatever. So it makes it simpler than having to remember which stones do you want to put out in the sun and what days are good and which stones go out in the moon and are you going to get up in enough time to get them in before the sun comes up and ruins them and, all those picky things. I like practical, and selenite is incredibly practical. Jono says Luna is doing a selenite grid in her house. I'm not sure exactly what for. Are you guys still doing the Amethyst Crystal Web Project? Absolutely. Every month we charge it up more, and I've got some really big amethyst crystals at this point. Someone gave me like a 5-pound chunk of amethyst from a friend of hers when she passed. And she had like a bunch of amethyst, and so she thought she should give it to people who might appreciate it, and she figured I might, and I sure do. So my other amethysts are on top of it. And we checked out a local shop here. We have like a new store that's got readers and crystals and stuff in it. So when we were going to pick up a crystal for a project that we needed, we went and checked it out finally. And there was only one person there. And the crystals were great, but the store's got this big sign on the front that says no purses allowed. No exceptions. And I'm like, excuse me? I need my purse if I'm going to pay for anything. And then there was like, we only accept cash. And I'm like, well, no one told me that before I walked in the door. We weren't spending a lot of money. But it was kind of disappointing that they just focused mostly on the crystals. They had some spell kits, and they had a reader there that you probably had to make an appointment with. She wasn't there because only one person was at the store. It was a Saturday. And but it was, interesting. It's just a few blocks down from us. Not very far at all. Quarter of a mile maybe. Right down the road and around the corner. So we'll see. We'll see if there's other stuff that happens there that we might be interested in. Jono says, would you mind sharing again the purpose, how we participate in the web project? Thanks. Well, we've got the video on how to do it. And the Amethyst Crystal Web Project is you initially charge up your crystals. It's not as important as when you start the project as we're continuing to charge them up every full moon. And so we're like adding to it as people come in. And the idea is to connect with all the amethysts on the planet. And amethysts are probably one of the most common crystals that are out there. So there's a lot of them everywhere. And we're charging up the amethysts for joy, peace, and tranquility. And I'll post the how to do the project kind of a thing closer to the full moon. I guess that's next week coming up, because I think the moon is at half at the moment on the way, or half from new to full. It's waxing. And in doing it, you start to learn about how to connect with the different spheres, because first you work with the elements in order to bring everything together, and then you raise the energy up from the physical sphere, through the astral sphere, through the mental sphere, and up into the akasha, and then focusing on that, bringing it back down to manifest itself. So people that are having a difficult time and are open to receiving the burst of joy, peace, and tranquility that we're trying to spread can get that from it. And then you can charge up individual crystals when you do that, and you can plant them in your community to add to the grid, consciously add to the grid, not just as being a random piece of amethyst that's growing in the ground. And I have noticed that more people are participating in it, because I can feel the increase of intention on the full moon. So we're always glad to have people participate in it, because it's a passive kind of thing to do, but it makes me feel better about putting some positive energy out there and making sure that people who want it can have it, and maybe it'll help us resolve conflict. I don't know, but it doesn't seem like a bad thing, so I'm in favor of it. That's why I decided to do it. I started it on May Day a few years back, before the pandemic, so that must have been in 2019 maybe. I think it was the last May Day ritual we did. It might have been that one or the one before that I started the project. And it was interesting to me, because I have this happen sometimes. It's like I knew I did it, and I wrote a thing to say about it, and I knew that it had happened, like in the future it had happened, I could tell, but I couldn't get it until it was the night before. It was very annoying. I kept trying to get it sooner, but it was like, nope, gotta wait. And then I got it, and all the whole way of doing it just sort of came right out, and just pretty much didn't have to do much in the way of modifying and rewriting anything that came through. It just kind of came through. So it's always interesting when that happens. Violet says, hi guys. Hi Violet.
Dono question. Right.
Oh, Dono says, can I do it with very small pieces of amethyst? Do I even need my own amethyst to participate? Well, it helps to have your own amethyst, but a small piece would be fine, because you're going to use the amethyst that you have to connect it with everything else. But I think you can tap into the energy without one. So it'd be an interesting experiment. But you don't have to have an expensive piece of amethyst at all. You can just go to, like a rock shop or whatever that's got tumbled amethysts for $1 or something in them, and use one of those, because the quality of the amethyst isn't important. I don't think it's the amethyst itself has got that connection to all other amethysts, and so the quality is secondary. Some people would like it, maybe if it was better quality, but I don't think it matters. And someone was asking that question on one of the videos earlier, or maybe it was on the new group, about how you can tell whether a stone is, whether a stone is man-made or natural. Does that make a difference, and that kind of thing, which brought up the subject of quality. And I think that man-made stones, theoretically, if they're anatomically and identical, or atomically, not anatomically, it is sort of, they're kind of
The anatomy of a rock.
the anatomy of a rock, identical, that you could connect to it, but I think that it's not going to have the millions of years of being that stone in the ground and connected to the planet that a man-made object is just not going to have that.
There's an aspect to the amethyst that's more than just the color. It's that linkage, that Akashic connection in there. And of course, they used to use it to keep people from getting drunk. I think they made amethyst cups, or maybe that
And
was for
also,
poison.
I think, no, it was for drunkenness, and I think it also was for depression. They used amethyst as a natural antidepressant. It's supposed to just having it on you, which is one of the other reasons I picked it, was because of that quality, to sort of lift the spirit. But the color itself is very connected to the Akasha, and so that's like, it's just a very universal kind of stone. Eve says, hi. Hi, Eve. Joy says, we'll give it a go. Could use more joy and peace lately. It's been rough around here. Yeah, and that's the thing, is like figuring out what you can do about something and what you can't do. If you can't do something, then hitting your head against a brick wall just injures your head. It doesn't help the situation. And that's sometimes very difficult for us. It's one of the reasons I like magic. It always gives you a path to doing something, even if it's something small, like planting a plant. I mean, to bring some life to a lifeless situation somehow, or to lift your own spirits enough so that you can cope with whatever it is that's going on. And that's the thing, is like there's always something you can do to yourself in that sense to change your relationship with the universe and the situation by changing your energy. It's interesting. So anyway, Rita says that's so true. Yeah.
Well, it can really help if you're feeling bad too, that you have, there's something you can do, like you were saying. At least it gives you options, and helped me a lot when I was going through some tough times, just knowing I had something I could, even if I couldn't work on this direct problem that I was having, I could be working on the overall situation somehow, magically.
Or working on yourself and
Yeah.
changing your energy signature to
Right. Well,
make things move.
Not only is it as above, so below, it's as within, so without. You're considered, of course, a small version of the macrocosm, which is the microcosm.
Joy says, last week someone asked about grimoires and you said to learn the basics first. Can you give an outline or a list of what the basics are? Well, I have I always forget what they call them. A playlist called The Basics. So my idea of the basics are like, learning to get in touch with yourself, taking responsibility for your own stuff, learning how to connect with the directions, figuring out where your weaknesses are so that you can be more balanced, and working on those things. Because when it comes to doing magic, the thing that's going to get you most in trouble is going for what you think are your strengths, which can turn out to be your weaknesses, and not working on that balance, being a balanced, energetic being. And, why do you cast a circle? How do you cast a circle?
Well, not only
learning
how,
about that.
but if you're going to use a grimoire, you got to be able to do a circle well. You have to do it strongly and powerfully if you're going to do it right. You have to learn how to do these things. They don't just come automatically because you say a spell or something. You have to build up the energy, the ability to draw an effective circle, to draw an effective triangle.
To know how to use a pentagram and what the pentagram means.
Hopefully
the significance of, each direction that you're drawing the pentagram in. Developing your authority on the other side. Because if you don't know what these things are and how to do them, you have no authority. And so if you're going to do anything like Ian says from a grimoire, because most of the grimoires are focused on beings that would have you for lunch if you made a mistake, which is why I don't see anyone should be even interested in them, but
certainly not to start with.
So if you're going to work with spirit beings and the invisible forces, you need to know how to act within that environment and to show that you know what you're doing and to claim your authority over whatever else might be happening. If you know that you have that natural authority, then nothing can actually get out of hand. But if you don't know that, then anything can happen.
Yeah, and that's, you can work with spirits without working with grimoires specifically. A grimoire, if they use that term, it's almost certain to be spirits that are considered on the negative end of the scale.
So Angela says, hello, blessings to Siofra, Ian, and Chat, and Violet. Hi, Angela. Rita says, know thyself. Absolutely. Jono says, you have a stunning introductory video, but I can never remember its name. I'm a witch, what next? Something like that. It's sort of like, so I've decided I'm a witch, now what? I think is what I called it. But best introduction video I've seen. Thank you. I appreciate that. I mean, I try to boil things down. It's like it's such an immense subject. There's so many things that you can talk about and so many angles you can focus on. And so, focusing on one aspect is important, for sure. Joy says, I would never work with grimoire spirits, just wondering for self-training purposes. Yeah, and I've got two different playlists. The one is the basics and the other is a deeper dive. The deeper dive has got a lot of stuff in it because it covers not just deeper dive as far as like symbolism and that kind of stuff goes, but shadow work and internal work and so forth. So, and just subjects that we don't often talk about that need to be talked about on a more complete level. But yeah, so there's a lot of stuff out there on our site, on our channel. Angela says, how is everyone's day? I hope magical. All of you are beautiful souls. You deserve cake. I manifest everyone cake or their favorite snack if you don't like cake. Thank you. Joy says, I've already watched and took notes on many of them. Good.
And
but
on your
practicing is...
On your previous comment that you would never work with grimoire spirits, there's not technically anything wrong with working with them, but I advise really knowing what you're doing, and starting off with some spirit beings that are not grimoire related. And once you know what you're doing enough, to have a feel for it, and then it's technically okay to work with them, but you really should know what you're doing before you try it, that's all. So there's not really anything wrong with it, per se.
Well, I mean, how many things are there out there that are possible that you can work with? If you can pick and choose between safe and not safe, pick safe.
Yeah. And
always
plenty and plenty of spirits.
Yes. Joy says, Rita says, Angela, cake would be good. Apparently, my granddaughter does not like cake. She likes cheesecake. Because cake to her is like chocolate cake or white cake. And cake is, neither does my daughter. And I also found out last night my daughter hates fires. Campfires. She doesn't like smelling like smoke. And the smoke always finds her. She was running around. Fire
It's
pit.
like looking away from a cat because you don't like them. And they jump on your lap because you're being polite to a cat.
Jono says, something that you guys are up against with new witches is everyone, especially me, wants to do Akashic Volts and Necromancy and Wingardium Leviosa, while you cancel us to find ourselves first. Sorry. I don't know what Wingardium Leviosa is, though, so...
I don't either, but for what it's worth, the video that's coming out on Tuesday is about the Akasha, and I called it Akasha, the Dweller on the Threshold. And it's a whole video just about that subject because it's a tough nut to crack, and there's not a lot of legitimate information out there about it.
True enough. Angela says, cake is magical. Oh, let's talk about cooking magic. If you were putting magic in the dessert, what would you put in and why? Rita says, cheesecake is good too.
Yep.
And Mary says, thank you, I'll take cake.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Angela says, it's a Harry Potter incantation to make stuff float. Oh, the Wingardium Leviosa? I have a feeling that most Harry Potter's incantations are not actually real. I think they were made up. But hey, try it out and see.
Yeah, well, there is a thing about charging up food, and in fact, it got so far that some religions were warned never to eat food served them by another religion because it might be charged with something against theirs.
Yeah. But food, magic and food is like in ancient times.
Cook that magic right in there.
One of the reasons why when you went to a person's house, you broke bread and with them ate something in their house was because if you did that, there was an unspoken agreement that everyone knew that if you slept under their roof that night, they wouldn't be able to hurt you because then the gods would seek revenge. So breaking bread and eating salt was a way to guarantee your safety in a house, which I thought was kind of interesting. Aaron says it's a spell from Harry Potter. Angela says they are made up, but in Latin. That's a funny story about the Latin. Rita and Jono are laughing. Anita says German chocolate cake is my favorite. It has coconut in the frosting. Joy says I could go for a hot fudge sundae right now. The Grumpy Owl says all the professors in Harry Potter have a name related to real practitioners in history.
Oh.
Angela says interesting. Anita says joy, yummy. Angela says my favorite cake is red velvet. So, yeah, I don't know where to go with that. I'm not eating cake at the moment, so stop making me hungry. How's that? I do have some double chocolate chip cookies, fudge chocolate chip cookies in my little cupboard that I was eating today. So
Oh, we have ice cream and fudge syrup on too.
That's right. We got some non-dairy vanilla ice cream, and I bought some chocolate syrup to go on it. And it's lovely stuff. Angela says, so would breaking bread then leaving be considered rude in ancient times?
I don't think so.
I don't know.
It would still be a gesture of friendliness and not harming, those you break bread with.
Right. That's a question. I'm not completely versed in all of the different things there. Just from the different reading I've done over the years that came up, and I thought how interesting. So yeah, I don't know. But I think that sharing food with another person is an intimate act, especially in times when food was scarce. So, if someone came to your house and you fed them, you were giving them like a huge gift in times when things weren't plentiful. And so that was quite an act of sacrifice on your part and a love, compassion or whatever for the other person and them receiving it, I would think. So I think that food has a lot of important things, and every culture's got their different sort of stuff. I apparently, when I grew up, is like we didn't go crazy in our household, thanking everybody for doing all the food stuff. And I went to someone else's house, a boyfriend's house, and I got chewed out by his mother because I didn't do certain things that they expected me to do to be grateful for.
Oh, artificial politeness.
I think artificial politeness in that case, but I don't know if it was also some kind of a cultural thing that was.
Well, most of those things are artificial politeness, if you ask me. But
Well, some of them are, but it's still, it's like blaming someone for not knowing your traditions is just
right,
silly.
that's ridiculous. Yeah.
Yeah, of course she was not a nice person. She was, yeah, she was almost evil. I didn't like. And she was Catholic, not that that meant anything, but she had never heard of an exorcism, which I was really quite stunned by, considering the fact that the Catholics were the ones that came up with it in the first place. It's like I knew more about a part of her religion than she did was quite a shock to me.
And the breaking of the bread and the salt is used in magical rituals and things today that has enough to it that's still being used.
Yep. Anita says, mouth is watering. Angela says, let's manifest cookies and ice cream. We'll all just manifest everyone dessert and have a party. And Anita says, I have strawberries waiting for me. We had strawberries the other day. I think right now, though, we have some watermelon in our fridge that we should have that I got. Anita says, true.
Well, I'm just full, so talking about food isn't doing me any good.
We just had lunch. I made some chicken soup after our leftover chicken carcass and rice and green beans and peas. I think it was basmati rice, was it? Or was it jasmine rice?
No,
Jasmine rice. Okay. One of those, the fragrant rice anyway. Something to do with the leftovers. Make a nutritious little meal. And added a few crackers to it when we put it in our bowl. So yeah, I think it's true that if someone makes food when they're angry, then their food is not as nutritious.
Yeah, that can get in the food, and it's very real that you can cook love into your food or whatever you've got, going on at the time. So, yeah, ideally, you shouldn't eat anything made by somebody who's angry, but then how many people go through drive-thrus, You don't know what kind of astral energy is getting attached to your food if you buy it in a fast food place, but
well, yeah, that's one of the reasons we cook most of our own food.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's true. You never know what's going to happen when you walk into a restaurant either. And is the cook happy with you? They tell you not to be mean to your waiter or say negative things about the food, because then they're going to do mean things to your food, and you're going to end up with germs and things. They're going to get back at you. Angela says, I grew up Catholic. No one really mentioned exorcisms growing up. I learned about it first through movies and found out it was a real ritual. Jacqueline says, hello, Siofra and Ian. Hi, Jacqueline.
Hello, Jacqueline.
Angela says, angry food tastes funny. A family member cooked dinner super mad and it tasted super weird. Interesting. Well, if you think about it, it's like there were a lot of restrictions in the old days about when a woman was allowed to cook. And one of the big ones was you weren't allowed to cook if you were on your moon. And it turns out that there's a reason for that, because the sweat that we make when we're menstruating will sour milk and change the flavor of things. And it's not because the woman is unclean, which was kind of where they ended up with that, but because it is a natural process, and ancient civilizations and whatnot figured that out. And so a woman wouldn't cook when she was bleeding. And I thought that was interesting. Joy says, someone made candied nuts when they were very tired, and after I ate them, I got so tired I slept the day away. Angela says, I pray cleansing prayers over my food at restaurants. Yeah, and Ian often charges his food up when we're at a restaurant, or sometimes at home anyway.
Yeah, a lot of
just to sort of get extra energetic energy going and stuff like that.
You can put in something that you want, like I want to achieve better concentration, and focus that into your food and then eat it, especially if you eat it with the focus on that happening. and then imagine it going through your veins and circulating through your body. You can actually get some real improvement in things by putting it into the food and eating it that way.
Well, yeah, and even just the change of your way of thinking about what you're doing with your food, even if there wasn't any actual change in the nature of the food, which of course I believe there was, but still. So Jacqueline says, did you have a happy anniversary? Yes, we did. We went to our sushi restaurant and we exchanged cards. And so we got to have cards, so that was fun. And it was a really good meal, so we thoroughly enjoyed it. Thank you. Joy says, I can see now that the reason we bless food before we eat to cleanse it, I think. That's part of it. Anita says, we couldn't put our hands in the pickle jar, same reason, spoil the whole jar. Jono says, maybe it affects them a bit, but I get the impression that most non-magical people aren't very affected by stuff like angry cooking, like they aren't tuned into it so it doesn't stick. Same with other stuff. Well, I think they might be affected by it, but not make the connection.
But they also might be already, if they're already that kind of an angry person and stuff, they'll never notice it as just, more of the same.
Yeah, it's hard to know. Angela says, oh, I'm going to try that next meal. I have been having magic munchies since a ritual working I did last night. Jacqueline says, explains a lot about my childhood, my mom's cooking. She hated cooking. I'm sorry. That's not fun. Angela says, happy anniversary. Thank you, Angela. Jacqueline says, I'm glad you got your sushi dinner. Yeah, we only go out to dinner like 3 times a year maybe at this point. We certainly got out of the habit when COVID hit, but then we're like, why are we spending that much money on food when we could buy it from the grocery store and cook it ourselves? So, Jono says the card exchange is cute. Yeah, it's sometimes hard to find good cards. We work really hard trying to find a card that fits. I had to get 2 cards that day, one for our anniversary and one for my granddaughter's birthday, because she had her birthday on the 19th.
And what kind of card do you get that possibly fits 30 years of being together, happily married?
31 now.
31, yeah.
Yeah. A lot of the cards, they say weird things. This is, it's like, oh, you were born and you brought joy into the world, and every time I see you, you're my special gift. And it's like, but I'm a horrible person and I'm doing terrible things. Or I don't know. Yeah, we try to find something that fits, though. So I think we did a pretty good job. Jacqueline says, yay, sushi is the only thing I can't do at home. Yeah, and that is pretty much true. We ended up going out. We've had a lot of friends from the past just kind of showing up here and there, was kind of weirdly. And one of our friends showed up on Wednesday, and we went to the open market, and he wanted to eat out, so we ended up eating out again, which we probably wouldn't have done if he hadn't been here, as we actually ate before he arrived. But okay, so we had. And they had some pretty good food there, but prices are insane. It's amazing how much they charge for stuff. It's totally astonishing to me. Angela says, you could always craft some cards full of good vibes. Yeah. Oh, Jacqueline says no fresh tuna. Yeah. I think the yellowtail is one of my favorites. I like the eel. But yeah, I introduced Ian to sushi. Someone else introduced me to it. Apparently, when I had my very first experience at a sushi restaurant, the sushi chef took a shine to me, and he kept giving me more and more food. I couldn't hardly walk. He wanted me to try different things once he figured out where I was at. And he had a good time, and I had a good time, except I thought my stomach was going to explode. Jacqueline says white tuna is my favorite.
I pretty much like it all.
Except for the fish eggs in particular.
Yeah, I don't go for the roe.
And the octopus is a little bit tough.
True, and I don't particularly like that stuff that's like perfuming when you use the
Abalone?
Abalone, yeah.
That is very perfumey.
But I like all the fish.
Yep. I guess it's not an actual fish, it's a clam kind of thing. Not quite a clam, but it's a shellfish. But anyway. Okay, enough of sushi. Angela says, I don't like sushi. It feels strange in my mouth, but it's beautiful to stare at. They put a lot of heart into making and plating it. Donna says, why are all you good people so hungry tonight? I don't know, because someone wanted us to have cookies. That's who started it. It's Angela's fault. But so let's have some other conversation besides food magic at this point. So someone hit us with another. Oh, okay. So I got a weird phone call last week. And I'm not sure what's going to happen with this. He is maybe wanting me to do an investigation, but I'm not quite clear. He thinks he knows everything and doesn't need any help, and he's scared to death at the same time. And he thinks that some spirit being, a demon in his head, took over his hand and punched himself in the head with his own hand. And yeah, it was so all over the place. I was just like, what? And I'm not sure exactly what's happening, but I think he's sort of doing it himself, because he did tell me that his mother died like 6 months ago, and she said, do not give this person anything of mine. And then after she died, he gave her thing to the person she told him not to give anything to, and then everything went crazy in his house. So her desk started jumping up and down, and her filing cabinet started moving around on its own. But he's sure it's not her, because she's a Christian and she went to heaven. And I'm like, do you realize that you called a witch? I'm like, I'm not sure. So I'm still kind of on the fence about this as to whether I'm going to go over, but we've been, doing our own thing. We had family stuff and anniversaries and, birthdays and memorials for lost people. So maybe, but I'm not going by myself. He has to come with me. There's no way after talking to this guy that I'm going to go by myself, because I'm not sure what I'm walking into.
Yeah.
He talked about being drunk and found on the street, and a court case, and having to go to the psychiatrist, and he wants to prove that everything he's seen is real and wants evidence, and he was just all over the place, and he thought I would be very impressed that he knew about thought forms. And that I should be wowed by his depth of knowledge, and then that he could take care of this himself. And I'm like, why are you calling me?
Of course, you're kind of making an assumption that he's not listening to the chat.
I don't think he knows anything about this. He contacted me through my other name.
Just saying.
Yeah. But anyway. So Angela says, maybe my magical munchies are contagious. Mary says, that's Angela said that. Mary says, I'm going to do a 3-day juice cleanse the beginning of June. Sounds like a good idea. Joy says, serves him right for not following his mother's instructions. Angela says, last wishes are important if they're within reason. Try to honor them, I say. Seems like a good idea. I think guilt is the thing that's getting him. Jacqueline says, I wouldn't go. Tell him to buy some holy water. And Angela says, I suggest you'd call his church. Maybe they'd bless the house. I have no idea. It is like sometimes the kind of calls that I get. I went to a place a number of years ago. Some people here in a trailer that were parked at the local casino. And I went, because someone contacted me and whatever, by myself, which is the last time I've done one of these alone, and stepped into their trailer and asked them how long they had been bothered by the spirit. And they said about 90,000 years. And I went,
That's right, I forgot.
I'm like, okay, that's not a usual response that I get. And things went downhill from there. And I'm standing there and I'm thinking, I am in a house on wheels. and they have closed the door behind me. They could just take me away. So I managed to get out of there fine and went back with Ian so that we weren't alone. And they had all those pictures of Mark Harmon everywhere, posters. The whole inside of their trailer was covered. He was apparently a god. I don't know. But they really liked him. They were everywhere. So it was sort of a wake-up call.
He was an actor from NCIS.
Yeah, for those who don't know. Yeah. And it was just like, okay, you shouldn't go to these things by yourself because you don't know if people are mentally stable until you get there. And there you go. And then that can happen. Jono says, do you see any magical significance in birds flying into house windows, but they're fine and fly off after? An esoteric store owner told Luna it might be a sign of attack of some sort. It depends, I think, on the tradition and on the family. I mean, it's a sign that she needs to put some decals in her window so that they can see that it's there. Because often that's what happens. That's the reason why birds fly into windows, because there's a glare on and they can't see that it's actually an object. Otherwise, they wouldn't be flying into it. Or hang something in front of it that would move, and would dissuade them from going straight ahead because they'd see the movement and veer off, or something like that. I would look at the practical reasons first before I would jump to magical attack.
Yeah, that seems like quite a leap from one to the other without any evidence or anything.
There'd have to be a lot of other things happening.
Why should magical attack make birds commit suicide in your
Yeah, and
house
that's the
anyway?
thing, is that when it comes to nature, like, magical attacks are generally not like big, huge, giant events. They're little things. This at least would be a little thing.
Well, and they're usually aimed at a person, not like killing birds or something. I mean,
yeah.
I mean, I suppose there's that possibility it could be, but, there's also a possibility that monkeys might write the entire Encyclopedia Britannica if you gave them long enough with it.
Yeah, but that might be longer than the entire existence of the universe.
Human race, yeah.
And the universe itself.
Or that too, but yeah.
Yeah.
So.
I think someone with a supercomputer proved it couldn't be done before there was no existence or some such thing. I don't know. But still, it's like, family history sometimes makes a difference too, because in our family, when I was a kid, my mother always told us that if a bird flew in a window and died, then that meant somebody in the family was dead. And that happened a number of times. But then it happened later, afterwards, and no one in the family died, at least not that we know of.
Well, a lot of those things can be traditions and that, and a lot of those things can be
individual relationships.
Things like that are individual, with you specifically and nobody else.
Right. I was thinking how the universe's conversation with me is pretty much in my face and not trying to hide anything, so I appreciate that. And it's like simple. So Luna says, hi all, how are you and Ian and Siofra? We're all pretty good. Jono says, same house, just extremely increased frequency suddenly. Well, I would definitely look at changing the window structure, like putting something out there so that the birds can see it. It could just very well be that it's invisible to them. We're talking about you, Luna. Angela says, I heard a story that if you find a dead bird that it deflected an attack on you and passed. I don't know if it's true, but when I find dead birds, I try and move them to a sheltered spot out of respect, which isn't a bad thing to do in and of itself, whether it's true or not. But then again, like my rosemary plant, rosemary is planted to protect your property from evil, and it was 6.5, 7 feet tall, and one day it died. And I'm pretty convinced that it absorbed a magical attack. It did its job, and I put a new one in there, which is now about the same height. So, who knows? It's like our interpretation of things doesn't necessarily mean that we're right. Luna says, lots of birds, different windows, different size of the house, past 2 weeks. I've done some divination on it and have ruled out magical attack. Okay. So apparently there's just something going on in your neighborhood. Maybe more birds than usual. Sable's D World says green hearts.
Maybe a different type of bird. Like we get flocks of these red-winged blackbirds, which are beautiful and they make the nicest sounds, but they mob the bird feeder and they empty it by throwing it all on the ground, and then they fly away and you don't see them for a few days.
Until you fill up the bird feeder again.
Well, you fill it up and then you get the little birds for a while and they're feeding and all of a sudden the blackbirds come in and mob it again. I just like the blackbirds, that's all.
Yeah, I like their song. They're pretty cute. BBB says, bird used to fly into my window too because it was reflective and reflects the sky, so they didn't realize it was a glass, so I'll usually open it during the daytime and that solved it. Not a bad idea. Angela says, starlings can dive while fighting and they can hit windows pretty frequently. True. And so can swallows, actually, when they're trying to protect their nest. Joy says, last week we talked about books by John Matthews. I read The She, supposed to be actual contact over a period of years. He said we share a common ancestry. There is also a symbol that can be used as a portal to their realm to communicate with them. The She designed those oracle cards. Okay. Still haven't seen that stuff, but interesting. Luna says, starlings, blackbirds, pigeons, and thrushes hitting my windows. I'm sorry. Maybe you've got like a power spot underneath that's attracting them. It's a possibility. Ian is looking up the oracle cards.
Well, it's like yeah, Arthurian Tarot.
And it's going to be the one about the She.
Nostradamus, Byzantine Tarot. The She is right there.
Yeah, that's the She. Angela says, do you have a bird feeder? Maybe they're fighting over food. Probably not on all sides of her house. But sometimes these things are just a mystery and we never actually figure it out. And Luna says, I'm worried about the birds damaging themselves. Yeah, and they're elves. This is sort of cute. Little miss thing there. Jonna says, Joy, what does that symbol look like? Luna laughed. Themselves even. I guess we'll find out. Luna says, no bird feeders as I have cats. Well, the only thing I can think of is putting decals or wind chimes or some kind of motion that the wind picks up, like pinwheels or something like that in front of the windows that would deter them. Maybe you just have a house in just the right spot to make it like you're on a straight migratory path or something for a lot of birds. Maybe put cat stickers in the window. I don't think it matters what the stickers are. It's just it helps them to see them. And you know, the like wind chimes or wind moving items, spinning wheels and stuff like that will deter them, I would assume. Sort of like Choku-rei. Hold on, I'll get the book. Oh, sort of like the Reiki symbol? Choku-rei, Choku-rei,
Yeah,
Choku-rei.
I'm sure
Seaki, Seaki, Seaki. That's the first symbol. Choku-rei. Angela says people do that to keep small creatures away from the house. Violet says, after the last show, I got 2 books. Dora Van Gelder was one, and the other is R. Ogilvy Crombie, Encounters with Nature Spirits, and Pan. I got halfway through the Pan book. It is enlightening. Yeah, that is actually the one I was talking about. Conversations with Pan is by him, Crombie. You can get the audio as well as the book. Angela says, Pan is awesome. Yes, Pan is awesome. Jonna says, interesting concept. As soon as you have cats, a bird feeder is actually a cat feeder. Well, yeah, that's true. There are cats in our neighborhood, But
Mostly they don't come into our yard anymore. For a
Yeah.
while we had a bunch of them that were obsessed with the bird feeder. The neighbors were annoyed because their cat would keep coming over and sitting on top of our chain link fence looking at the bird feeder. But we haven't had that issue for a while anymore.
and
Moved it a little bit away from the road.
yeah, we moved the bird feeder so it would be less appealing for the cat, and that actually solved the problem with the cat, because a lot of the birds get on the ground under the bird feeder, since the red-winged blackbirds like to throw it out, and the doves like to eat off the ground. And one day Ian looked out the window and there were 30 doves on our lawn, and they all took off. When they saw his face,
All at once.
they're like, "Oh my God, what's that? His giant head. We better run." Grumpy Owl says, "There's window film you can use that uses static to stick instead of adhesive. I have that on my window in stained glass style. I also cut shapes like a heart out of it and stick them to my windows if you don't want your whole window covered."
Yeah, we have something like that in our living room, our big living room window.
Yeah.
There's some stuff on the inside.
Joy says 5 counterclockwise circles increasing in size, and when you get to the top after the that is the chokeray symbol. That's the Reiki symbol. I'm not sure how that relates to the she, since the symbols that came through were from the angels that were on the mountaintop in Japan, so that might be kind of a cross-cultural kind of a assumption.
How do you spell she again?
Sidhe.
Sidhe, okay.
It's Celtic. They never spell stuff the way it seems it should be.
Well, it's okay, but it's so similar to a Hindu word that's almost the same.
Ah.
And I can't remember.
Jono says, "You haven't told us about your crow friends in a while. Are you still feeding them peanuts?" Well, yeah, I actually put some pictures up them on the Facebook group that everybody
so there
asked
you
me
go.
to start.
That's the one from John Matthews.
Yeah, that's pretty much the same thing.
Yeah.
Oh, the chokeray goes clockwise. This goes counterclockwise.
Well, maybe. There are
And only
both,
3 times.
There are both versions depending on whose Reiki you're listening to.
Apparently, that has more circles around it. So, I don't know. Jono says, "Thanks, Joy." Yeah, you can look that up. And yes, I took a picture of one. They're actually getting a lot more comfortable with me, and there's a couple of them that will now come down while I'm still standing in the yard and not having left the yard yet, and will come down to pick up a peanut. So I've been talking to them. I looked up their lifespan is about 8 years on average, which probably means that almost all of the crows in the area at this point know me. I've been here their entire life, and then their children's lives, and then their grandchildren's lives. So it's sort of interesting. So the newer generation of crows is getting more and more comfortable with my presence being around, although I'm not pushing it because they're wild, and I'm not trying to tame them or anything. I'm just coexisting and telling them how beautiful they are. And they're big. They're good-sized crows. American crows are a lot larger than the European crow, apparently. I don't know about Africa, though. If you have crows and how big they are. Angela says, "That's why cat collars have bells to warn birds they're coming." Yeah. Although I had a cat who figured out how to make that bell not ring. She still was an amazing hunter. But that's nature. So, Violet says, "Off was odd."
That's an odd statement by itself.
Okay. Odd is off. Off is odd. I don't know what that means. Angela says, "I heard a super sweet story about an old crow couple who's in their teens or 20s, and the female crow broke her beak." I've seen that one. And ravens are the ones that live to be 30. So I think that they weren't crows, but ravens, probably, if they were that old. And I have seen their picture circling the internet from time to time. Yep. And they are, they stay together for a long time. I got to meet a small parrot creature, And he's 17 years old. He was at the grocery store sitting on his person's shoulder, and his name is Vortex, which I thought was interesting. And they live to be about 50, so everyone's got a different. And I think that the bigger those kind of birds, they tend to mate for life. So it's interesting. So they're ravens. I'm thinking so. I think when I've seen it, they've not always called them. Sometimes they've called them crows and sometimes ravens. But you have to look really carefully at the way the beak is. Sort of gives you a clue as to what they are, because crow's beak is slightly different shape than a raven's. But the ravens are a lot bigger. I mean, we got big crows here. Our ravens are humongous. I've got 2 feathers, and like the crow feather's like this big, and then the raven feather is like that big, and they're both from the tail. So it's just amazing to me how much of a difference there is between the species. Angela says ravens in captivity live into their 80s sometimes. Violet says, wow. Angela says people intermix them. Ravens are much larger with a much thicker bill. Yes. Mary says, how is the rabbit? Eating her rabbit food yet? Yes. He pretty much wouldn't eat anything unless we fed him crackers for about 2 weeks. So we stopped feeding him crackers and the snaps that he likes altogether. And it took him 2 weeks to decide to start to eat. And it's only been 3 days he suddenly decided, you know what? I'm going to eat this piece of lettuce. And then he went after a piece of hay. And so I think we're getting him out of that addiction to junk food.
Yeah.
So he was seriously addicted to junk food. So I'm hopeful. Joy says, we don't have ravens in Michigan. Aww. Lori says, hello guys, live chat didn't know. Anyways, love to everyone. I watch best as I can, but I never forget you all stay safe, well, and blessed be. Thank you, Lori. Jono says, I don't know how to describe the size of our ravens. They're big. I saw one flying with a whole chicken egg in its maw. That's good size. They've always freaked me out a bit. Way too clever in winter like now. More. Angela says, I know this because a big male raven landed in arm's length of me. He just decided that, and he and I stared at each other. Then I said, okay, I'm going this way, and left, and he flew over me with a large mouse in his beak. Oh, that's always fun. Violet says, that is funny. I wrote the same thing twice, and you missed it both times. It was about what was good on TV lately.
We didn't.
It never came through.
Come through on this end.
I don't know why. And Ruth says, yes, we do. Shay says, hello, dear ones. Here on my 10-minute break. Bright blessings to all. Hi, Shay. And I don't know what's good on TV lately. We started watching Silo, and that's interesting, as we like science fiction. Mary says, ha ha, I love your rabbit. Yeah. And he really likes to lick the daylights out of my arm and then my clothing, and then the other day he got up and was licking my nose, which worried me a little bit because I was afraid he was going to nibble it. He is, after all, called Nibbler, and he does sometimes get his teeth involved in his process.
Huh, why didn't you get that?
What?
This. Well, got all these hearts from Lori Burnham, and they didn't show up on yours at all. Huh. Speaking of which.
Weird, okay. Grumpy Owl says, there are ravens in Ontario around the Thunder Bay area. Isn't Michigan just under Ontario? Well, there's ravens up in British Columbia, too, where I lived up in the Kispioks. Violet says, I think the reason it did not come through was one was about a magical djinn. It was on Prime.
Huh. Well, if you recall the name of it, mention it again.
Yeah, maybe we'll watch it. There was one on Netflix that I found kind of boring and wasn't interested in about the djinn.
Yeah. I think the stories of the real stories about them what they were and stuff. The Arabians and stuff are very interesting.
Yeah.
I don't know much about it, but it sounds like they're very interesting fire beings.
Ruth says yes, and we have ravens.
Ah.
Angela says, I wonder if there's a link between the Jinn and the Goetta.
I would not think so, but
Different
I can't
cultures.
say I know enough about it to really say. Yeah.
Tanya Rouse says, started watching The Power, which is very interesting, about women and girls able to shoot electricity out of their hands and men feeling threatened by their new ability. Yeah, we rather enjoyed that. We watched the whole series already.
Well, that's Roy Burnham sent through some more stuff.
And it still didn't come through on mine. Nope, nothing.
Well, that's weird. And it keeps asking me to hold it for review. I
Well,
don't know why.
because there's too many emojis.
Well,
maybe.
no, there is stuff about the jinn being sealed in bottles and in brass containers and thrown to the bottom of the ocean and stuff from Solomon's temple, Solomon's seals. So
That's Angela. She's, as some Arabia tales talk about jinn being sealed in bottles with Solomon seals. But it
Yeah,
could have
and-
just been a mistranslated version, as I did read that in high school mythology class.
no, I think it's valid. The jinns and that stuff is all tied up with Solomon's stuff. As far as I haven't researched that side of things, but I know that there's a lot of connections there, and there's a lot of people who deal with those hierarchies that deal with the Solomon seals and stuff too, because King Solomon was supposed to have been in charge of them and he sealed them up and stuff. So, but I don't know much on that aspect of things. I suppose I could research it. I'd find it interesting, I'm sure.
Violet says, titled 3,000 Years of Longing. Yes, we've watched the movie already, before it came out on Prime. It was kind of odd, though. Real heavy set nakedness involved. Then Power is good about electricity in the fingers. Really good, in fact. Yeah, it was interesting.
Which
I
one
thought
was it?
the 3,000 Years of Longing, that was about the jinn that he was eventually freed. She kept him for a long time, the woman that had him and stuff like that and whatnot. You weren't as interested in it. It was a little bit slow. Not as much action kind of thing. Mary says, I've been having technical difficulties all day. Mercury retrograde is over. I don't know what's going on. Yeah, well, technology is still technology.
Yeah.
Violet says, there was a famous actor that played in this 3,000 Years of Longing. It was cute. I really did love it. I will watch it twice. Well, that was Idris Elba and what was the woman? I can't remember her name right now. Grumpy Owl says, have you heard of Uper light? I recently got one. Has phosphorus soda light that glows under UV light. Yes, I've heard about it.
I've heard the term only myself.
Yeah, it actually comes from a specific place, and somebody on here gets it, gathers it sometimes. Jono says, Owl sounds cool. Angela says, your vibe is competing with the tech. You're just so magical. Technology bows down. Shay says, Tilda Swinton. Yes, thank you. That's who played the woman. Violet says, ah.
Yeah, I don't.
Oh, neat, Shay.
Yeah, I don't know what that was, but we got 3 R's followed by a space and an A.
That's what I said, ah.
Yeah.
I don't know what that means. So, yeah.
I wish technology bowed down. Doesn't matter how magical I am, it fights me as hard as it does anybody else.
Well, then there's those people, it's like some of whom have been hit by lightning where it is, there's a conflict of energetic forces at play, and technology doesn't like lightning, so. Violet says, Cleopatra was another one on Netflix, 4 episodes. Yeah, I just finished watching that too. I thought it was interesting. Angela says, probably to my comment of technology bowing, like, Angela, really? Who knows? Yeah, I thought the movie was really well done. I enjoyed it, but it was, just not Ian's particular style. He wasn't in the right mood for it or something.
Yeah, well, I'm not much for historical movies in general, though I like some history to learn about it.
Well, the genie's not exactly historical in the sense that, it's supposed to be imaginary. So Lori says, my favorite is Red Velvet too. My grandmother made them all the time and her birthday is today. She's no longer here. I hate to admit I don't know what age she would be. Forgive me. I'm sure she won't mind. Mary says, it comes from the Upper Peninsula of Michigan. My friend gets it who comes here too, the Uperlite. Violet says, Vikings has a part 2 to 5 seasons, which is real different, I found. I'm watching Sneaky Pete a second time. Yeah, Vikings got a little bit too violent for me, so I stopped watching it. John O, you guys must have watched 1996 The Craft, yes. You ever consider doing a reaction video just for fun? I don't know. I'd probably get into trouble. Or are we very serious and seriously altruistic here? I would probably get into a lot of trouble if I did a reaction video to that.
Yeah, me too. Probably say a few things. Don't want to offend anybody.
Well, yeah, and I'm not a reviewer, so if that was my thing, sure. And there's probably special rules that apply, and you can only, whatever, I'd have to look into it. And that's not what you guys are coming to see me for, my reaction to badly done magical movies, which everybody loves. Angela says, I'd love to see reaction videos to witchy stuff with Siofra and Ian, the sarcasm witchy magical. Yeah, I watched the second one too that came out. It was entertaining to watch. I don't remember it. I remember I watched it, but I'd have to watch it again to remember what I saw. Something about their children and the same type of theme coming back and whatnot. Just like, it was okay. I like the original Firestarter much better than the remake, if that makes any point of any kind. But the second Craft wasn't a remake, it was a continuation, supposedly, of the story. And Violet says, season 5 of Vikings was over the top, alright. Have you seen Sneaky Pete? It's really good, kind of like Better Call Saul in some ways. You might try it, the plot is so thick. Yeah, we have a lot of shows that we tend to watch, so probably not. Ruth says, laugh out loud.
We did like Better Call Saul, though. That was a good show.
Yeah, but we are on to other things right now. Angela says, let's talk about glitter and magic. What would you use all it for? I like to use it to add magic to my tea. You like to drink glitter? Okay. I wonder, your toilet would be exciting afterwards. Well, goes in one end, it comes out the other. Oh, edible glitter. Well, yeah, but does it stay glitter? I mean, I don't know. Violet says, I put glitter in my intention bottles. Yeah. Angela says, it's made of sugar, available in the cake section. Okay. So it does dissolve. So okay, fine. Is whatever works for you. I mean, that's the thing. It's like if it makes you feel happy and it adds a positive feeling to what you're doing and it helps you to connect with what you're trying to do. It's like, it's not the form so much as the reaction it gives.
Anything that makes it more visceral, makes you feel it more, or lifts your mood up. All those things are great magically.
Jono says, Angela, please don't drink glitter. Angela says, of course not. Non-edible glitter. Oh, edible, he says. Edible glitter is great for candles. It's burnable, too. Okay, Angela, that's awesome. The Grumpy Owl says that's awesome, so apparently we're on the same page with that. Synchronicities abound. It's always interesting.
I don't know, but seriously, you could use it magically if you were doing certain types of spells or something that needed that, If you're doing a spell to try to make somebody happy or something, you might use glitter in it.
I had to try and help undo a Love Me Forever spell bottle that had glitter in it.
Yeah.
And they threw the bottle away, so it was kind of difficult, but I did what I could. But yeah, it all depends. Angela says it's also not as messy because you can use water to dissolve it. Just clean it with a red rag.
Well, that
good.
sounds like a valid point. Yeah.
I mean, every so often the fairies sort of sprinkle glitter around, so I don't know where they're getting it, but it's not dissolvable. It seems to be pretty much the real thing. So they must have a source of glitter. Maybe it's kind of like those pins that appear out of nowhere and fill up the jar. It's like they've got glitter that they can just sort of throw around. Magic glitter. Angela says, I use regular glitter and spell bottles for protection because glitter will stick to anything. So in theory, what I need protecting from will be followed by glitter. It'll have a trail of glitter going through. You'll see their footsteps will have glitter trails in them, and you'll know, aha, not a good person. We have to watch out for this.
Well, this makes me think of glitter bombs.
Yeah, and glitter gets everywhere. Yes. I like glitter. I mean, I like shiny, sparkly, pretty colored stuff, so glitter qualifies. And I am like that. It's like, you get me going somewhere, and I might have something in mind, something I'm going to do, and then there's something sparkly over there, and then I'm gone. I'm like, what's that? Let me go and see what that is, because that sparkles, and I like that. So, yeah, I am easily distracted by sparkly, glittery things.
Glitterati.
I'm a glitterati. What? I don't even know what that means.
Sort of like the Illuminati.
The Illuminati, the glitterati. Okay. We're starting a new magical order called the glitterati. You got it. And we'll have to have...
slightly superficial.
Well, we have to have a good conspiracy theory to go with it. And it's like, and they're spreading their message through glitter. And we know glitter gets everywhere, so that means that they are everywhere. It's like, right? Angela says, glitter is awesome. Me to Siofra. My brain does that. I'm not going to be distracted. My brain, something shiny. Yep. And, it's like it is maybe a weakness, but I don't know. I see things other people don't, so there. That's how I ended up finding the crystal that ended up on my staff after the solar eclipse that we went to. Nobody else saw it in the grass. 10 people walked over it, and then I came along and went, oh, look, crystal. Picked it up. Violet says, I used a mortar and pestle to combine my powdered ingredients and put it separately into a tiny bottle with a bigger bottle. I hope I wasn't sealing the magic of the powder off, hopefully. Intention. No, probably not.
No, the worst thing you could do to seal it in would be surround it by silk.
Right.
And then you might pretty well block it in if you did that.
Luna says, I'm a professional cake maker, sugar artist. I use luster dust, edible, on cakes. Same stuff they use in glittery cocktails. It's a very fine, shiny dust. Gets everywhere and on every surface. Cool. Probably comes in a lot of colors, too. Angela says, yeah, I find so many things. Maybe the something shiny brain is for dowsing. Maybe. I mean, I notice things other people don't. And often just the fact that I'm going to go look for something helps him find it. It's a weird thing. It's like he'll say, can you help me find my water bottle, my glasses, or whatever? And I say, okay. And I start to get up, and he goes like, oh, there it is. And I don't know, but it works.
I don't know. I think it's the amount of time. I'm about frustrated when I ask you to help me to look, and that's usually when I find it, yeah.
Mary says, I know I'm late with the bird window conversation, but I just realized that my windows are too dirty for the birds not to see. Knew there was a magical reason not to wash windows. Yeah, it's always good to have an excuse.
There you go. We'll use that as an excuse for
Absolutely.
why I haven't washed the car.
That's right,
somehow.
So that they can see it coming. Because apparently white is something that they can't see.
Algae grows on everything around here.
It does.
Everything turns green eventually. Or rust.
Yeah. Luna said for weeks after, like glitter dust on every surface. It looks great when it's floating through the air and gets caught in sunbeams. Glittery dust motes. Ooh,
Cool.
I like it. It might make fairies want to come because they like glitter too. Angela says, sounds great for Magic Luna. Yeah. Violet says, that is funny. You reminded me about Silkus holding energy in. That was good. You're welcome. Angela says, oh gosh, Luna. Oh, Luna, put it on your window so the birds will see it and seal it on with Mod Podge. Okay. Is that also edible? Or is that a glue?
That's a glue.
It's a glue, okay.
Yeah, that's sticky stuff.
Sticky glue. Don't stick yourself to it.
I don't know if it's edible, but probably not. I've never used it, but I've seen it.
I remember white glue being edible when I was a kid. So everyone ate it. Mod Podge is a glue seal. Yep. Thank you. He figured that out for me. It would make more sense if it was a glue. Otherwise, why would you seal it with it? There is a dish-safe Mod that is safe to use on cups. The rest is not.
Okay.
It's always good to know your products, that's for sure. You don't want to accidentally have something that's not safe for ingestion and be ingesting it. Causes all kinds of problems.
Yeah.
So yay. Happy. Luna says it. Angela Mod Podge, haha, laughing. Yes, that.
You could probably glue a hodgepodge of things together with it.
Mod Podge, a hodgepodge?
Hodgepodge.
A hodgepodge of Mod Podge.
Sorry.
And our tongues are now twisted in some weird shape, and we will now be calling demons. Like those memes where someone's trying to read a cake recipe or something like that, and they accidentally end up invoking a demon.
Or somebody has, what's it, where they reverse the letters, dyslexia or
Oh,
something?
dyslexia.
Trying to evoke an angel or something.
Yeah, end up with something else other than that. Angela said, yes, that, yes. Violet says, I went to the Audubon Society and met a talking raven there right before I was being led down the magical path. I did not know anything about magic yet. His name was Aristophanes. Well, yeah, ravens are very good at talking. They are such great imitators. And there's a lot of birds that are good imitators. But ravens readily learn human speech. So it's sort of interesting. And think as good as, if not better than parrots in some cases. So cool. That'd be
cool.
Awesome.
Our red-winged blackbirds have been making water drop sounds. Like bloop, bloop. They sound just like water dripping. I don't know what they're imitating.
Angela says, ravens have their own voices because they don't mimic the voice, just the words. Yeah, but they also sometimes mimic sounds. They can sound like the things that are in their neighborhood and stuff like that. Mockingbirds do that too. I had a mockingbird when I was a kid who imitated the sounds of cats and dogs and all sorts of other animals and stuff like that to distract the cat when our cat was trying to hunt her, and then dive bomb the cat, so that was kind of entertaining. Angela says ravens might be as smart as dolphins. Well, they're at least as smart as a 7-year-old, they say. They can do math. Yes, they can. And they figure out how to help each other, too. They're very community-oriented, even though ravens tend to be more alone than crows. Crows are more like flock, and ravens are like a few together kind of thing. I had a friend up in the Kispiox who witnessed a raven moot, I guess. And it happened in her yard, and she'd never even heard or of anything like it. There was this really old raven that landed in the top of the tree in her yard, and he was so old he was gray. And all the other ravens landed at the base of the tree in a big circle around the tree. And the old raven would start to talk, and all of the ravens below would be quiet and listen. And then after the older raven said whatever he said, all the ravens below would start talking amongst themselves until the old guy started talking again. Then they would all shut up and listen. She said it was the most amazing thing she's ever witnessed. And I just thought that would be so cool to see that. They were having a meeting. Jono says, Luna, you weren't here. Ian has a video about Acacia and he lit the pillars for it. It might be released this week. It's like he made a video just for me.
I
Yes.
think Siofra planned on putting it on there on Tuesday.
Yep.
Yeah.
Give us a couple of days.
Yeah.
Violet says, I was at Starbucks sitting outside one day with a good coffee and this lady had a whole flock of starlings around her because she was giving them cakes. I kept staring at the magnet that she was. Yeah, people end up with interesting relationships with animals.
Unless they're just mean.
Yeah, well, the ones that have an interesting relationship with animals are usually not
Yeah.
mean. Luna says, I'm dyslexic, which is why it takes me so long to type and put things simply in just a few words. Ian, you light the pillars? Yes, he does.
Yeah, but I only light them a little bit. Since it's indoors, it creates a lot of
Heat.
alcohol burning fumes and a lot of heat. So
Yeah.
I only lit them a little bit, but I did light them. Yeah.
Angela says, hugs, Luna, does it give you trouble when you try and read too? I wish they had something for it. Sounds like such a pain. Luna says, do you realize what this has done to Jono? I'll never be able to keep under control now. Violet says, oh, wow, about the cold raven, so cool. Cold is old. Old raven, yes. Yes, and he was all gray, so he must have been pretty ancient. Angela says, cats and dogs that don't like anyone will come right to me and sit in my lap, and the owners will sit there with a weird look. One person said that what the swear word, that cat hates everyone, even me. Well, and I have the same effect, and so does my granddaughter. We were actually talking about this just the other day. She did not know that this one cat didn't like anyone at this house where she goes pretty regularly. This cat would jump in her car and rub her up and then sleep with her when she stayed at the house, and then just recently they told her they are baffled because this cat doesn't like anyone and won't let anyone touch it. And so we were talking about that, and when I was over at my son's and daughter-in-law's, they have two cats, one who's very skittish and standoffish, and I had that cat sitting on my lap pretty quickly, and they were just sitting there watching my lap going like, this is so weird. We've never seen that before. And I think if you're a calm individual and you like animals, that sort of comes out of you. And I've had dogs, older dogs especially, that come up to me and just want me to give them a healing and give them a pet and stuff like that. And I've had a dog I've just met, like a puddle on the floor at my feet, just like happy.
A lot of it's knowing how to communicate with them, though. Like cats like that slow blink, but you don't want to stare at a cat. And unfortunately, that's one thing I like to do. I want to put my nose right up to theirs, and they go, "You're staring at me! Stop it!"
Luna says, at Angela, it causes all sorts of issues, facial recognition, short-term memory problems, reading. I have coping strategies, though, so I'm all good. I did not know that dyslexia caused all that. And I know I have a sister who was dyslexic, and it was she had a huge amount of trouble getting through school.
Well, I know of someone who had a similar type of problem, not so much with letters and words, but he couldn't tell his right arm from his left, for the right side from the left. He kept getting him confused, so he had to wear a bracelet. He wore a bracelet on one arm so they could know which one was the left arm.
That's kind of like that story from The Practical Princess and other liberating fairy tales.
His brain just could turn to your left, like.
What? Yeah, in The Practical Princess, there's a prince who doesn't know his right hand from his left, and so his father sends him on a quest and marks his hands so that he knows which way to go to get to the princess he's supposed to rescue or meet. And by the time he gets to the fork in the road, it's rained and the mark is off his hand, so then it's going the wrong way, and having a much better adventure and meeting a much better princess. So it was pretty cool. Jono says there was once a Chihuahua that didn't like me, but I'm sure it had brain damage from an accident because it's the only time an animal hasn't liked me. I'm blaming that, but it's still hurtful. Yeah, well, usually it's not personal. It's just like with people. Most of the time, it's not actually personal.
Yeah, we found a poor little kitty cat once that we tried to rescue, and it had been so abused by people that you couldn't deal with it. It had to live, away from people. It was so afraid. It was a tiny little kitten. I mean, just tiny, and people had shot it with BBs and cut its nipples off and really seriously abused it.
It was horrific.
And it couldn't be
rehabilitated.
Rehabilitated, yeah.
I found someone who had a cattery of rescues and stuff like that, and so she took care of it for the rest of its life, so at least it had a safe place to be, and it was allowed to just be a cat with other cats. But even after being there for a long time, it still couldn't
it could
tolerate
never
being
make a
around
house
people.
pet. It had been too abused at too young an age.
The thing that really worried us about that is that it was in our neighborhood, and we figure that means we have a serial killer growing up in our neighborhood who's going to come out at some point in the future.
Yeah, we found this little kitty in our front yard one day.
Hiding underneath a truck, crying. So yeah, it was just horrific. It's incomprehensible to people like us. It's just like, how can anyone do that to anyone, animal, child? It doesn't make any sense to us. So I'm glad I'm not built that way to be able to understand it. It's okay not to understand it. It means I have nothing in common with them. So we need to get going here because it's a little bit past our hour-and-a-half mark. So Luna says there are different types of dyslexia. I don't know right from left, and I'm also dyspraxic too, so I like to walk into stuff and fall over. And I skate. Hey! Well, that's probably good training for you. Angela says, makes no sense to me. I don't want to understand. I just want all the horrible things like that in the world to stop. Me too. Violet says, thank you too. Have a lovely week. Angela says, you're welcome, Luna. And Ruth says, goodbye. Bye all. And yeah, so this has been an entertaining conversation and certainly different. We'll have to talk about all this, whatever it is that comes up later. So, love you all guys, and
blessed be.
And blessed be everybody.
That's become just my favorite greeting.